Tell him I got the juice.
Healing is not linear. It's not something that is just a skyrocketed straight up, okay, from the bottom to the top, right? From the started from the bottom, now we're here with Drake vibes, right? And there's definitely a progression, and it's definitely something that is to be measured by milestones. Now, obviously, with examples of milestones, we can think about, no longer being upset when hearing somebody's name, no longer getting to a place where a song is triggering or it sets you back, right, to all the memories that you had with somebody. It doesn't really set you back completely in that manner. Healing also requires focus and or separation. When we talk about the focus part, we have to be willing to focus on the areas that are hurting most. And typically, when we go through these healing journeys, we might be more willing and even encouraged in some space to find ourselves taking a delayed route to getting, recovered from certain things that have happened to us. And maybe the delayed route could be us turning to devices that we think are going to actually help us overcome it, right? We don't like the feeling that we have. We're trying to do anything to get rid of it. So we turn to other devices, we turn to other places, we turn to other spaces. And what happens is we actually delay our healing by trying to take these momentary shortcuts, right? And we delay it because we aren't really willing to face the biggest issue, the biggest problems that bubbled up from the hurt that we felt, whether it was a separation of friendship, it was a separation of relationship, a season transition, right? With friendships and relationships. Your boy has endured that, has gone through that. And I got to tell you, when I encountered that, rather not encouraged, when I encountered that, that was something that definitely rocked me. I didn't really know how to operate it. And it was crazy because I always knew that that day was coming, but when it came, I was not prepared for it. And so, ask my mentor, ask coaches around me. I really went through an interesting time there, and I learned a lot. And it's stuff that has kept with me that I don't mind sharing here. But when it comes to the focus part, we want to focus on the biggest issue, because even though it could be a fear thing, right? We don't really want to face that because it's a little bit tense. It's a little bit sensitive. It's really difficult, right? Because we're just so filled with all this emotion, and we don't even know really what to do with that yet. And so with a part of these emotions, we definitely have a lot of things that start popping up, right? A lot of different scenarios and narratives, situations, stories, a lot of things and issues that we might find, oh, that's a problem, that's a problem, that's an issue, that's an issue. And we kind of get really nitpicky with a lot of them. Sometimes they're really obvious, and sometimes we're looking for them intently. And maybe in some case, you might find yourself blaming yourself. In a lot of ways, you have maybe a lot of questions, confusion. It's so much that takes place in this area. But with the focus, right? Because when we focus on something, right, we really want to just narrow it down as much as we can to where our target is set and we're locked in on really dealing with this one issue. And for some of us, the biggest issue might be, gaining trust again, right? Trusting ourselves again. Maybe the biggest issue might just be a lot of the anger and frustration. You might be typically used to going to different areas, different routes to get over what you used to be hurt by, and now that you're operating in a different way, it's a struggle. We want to be willing to focus on the biggest issue, because I think if we focus on the biggest issue, whatever that biggest issue is for you, then we're able to deal with the rest of it as it comes. Because oftentimes the biggest issue has a lot, it's not really big on its own, it has a lot of smaller symptoms from the rest of the issues that we could possibly accumulate, right? So if the biggest issue is your anger, actually, anger isn't the biggest issue on its own. It's actually a lot of components that make up the anger, right? Because we could look at anxiety, we can look at sadness, we could look at fear. Then we go deeper, right? So what are the specific fears? What are the specific anxieties? What are we really thinking about and running and racing in our minds to really deal with this issue or what's in front of us? And so there's so many layers to those dominoes. And I think a lot of those layers is what makes up the biggest issue that we see. And when we face that and we get the courage to face that, I think that is really how we really attack a lot of the issues that have come about as we're going through this healing journey. So requires focus, and then again, I added separation in there too, because one thing about me, I am never going to encourage somebody to jump into another romantic relationship of any kind, and you find yourself in a season where you're healing. Things that hurt you, things that really disturbed you, really bothered you, really threw you off your course, stuff that really, really got at you. I'm not going to suggest that you jump into another relationship. And typically that's what you see, right? And there's so many reasons why people will do it. Oh, I don't want to do it alone. Who wants to be alone in those trying times and things of that sort? But my question to that would be, who says that a romantic relationship has to be what you get into in order to not go through that season alone? There's so many relationships that we can engage in that can be as beneficial as we're assuming the romantic relationship is. And oftentimes, if we find ourselves operating in that space, I think we might have just something to consider. And I'm not saying that this is you or somebody but it's possible that we come in with a different agenda. We have a very different agenda that isn't actually trying to know the other person that we're entering that relationship with, or trying to actually genuinely build a bond that will last a lifetime with that individual. Instead, we might be actually depending on that individual to fix whatever is wrong with us, fix whatever we feel we are incapable of fixing. Hopefully, this person can just keep my mind off of this last relationship because this person just seems different, right? We're hanging out every day, we're doing everything, we're doing relationship stuff, and sometimes we buy into that idea that we're actually getting over it, right? And we're actually getting over the problem, right? The hurt, the pain that we suffered through. And in actuality, we're not. Separation doesn't equate to loneliness, it equates to removing yourself from the environment that's caused the harm, right? So we're not necessarily saying you got to be alone, which hence, right, like we want to be in community, we want to be in trusted relationships and friendships with others as we're journeying through our healing. um but we don't want to find ourselves entering into another romantic relationship in order to salvage the pain that we're feeling, that we are actually in need of healing of. Thank you so much for joining me in this clip. This is from a recent live stream that I have just done. If you want to check that out, click somewhere on the screen and there you can catch the full replay along with so much more content we've got here for you, learning how to navigate and grow healthy, happy, whole, and biblical relationships. I'll see you over there.